Good morning, television neighbors. Today's topic is distraction, and this may be an interesting topic while driving, I suppose. But yeah, the definition of distraction is something that prevents you from paying full attention, giving full focus to the task at hand. And this topic came up as a result of a viewer question from a friend of mine. And she was talking about a lot of common distractions like entertainment or sports ball or celebrity worship. I would extend that to just worship in general. Let's see, there were a whole bunch of other things that she mentioned that can be distracting to people. And so I guess when you look at it from the standpoint of something that's preventing you from giving your full attention to something, I think that when we think about distraction, we need to look at how much attention is needed. So there are different levels of not giving full attention. So if I didn't think that it was perfectly safe to vlog while driving, then I wouldn't do it. And I know that there's a chance that people might overestimate their own capabilities on something, but one of the things that I've done is I've provided dash cam video that demonstrates how I drive while I vlog. So I think that would be something reasonable to consider into it, is that I maintain my ability to be safe and courteous while I'm vlogging and driving. And that's because vlogging is kind of secondary to my driving. I'm giving driving more of my attention than vlogging. And considering the stakes at hand, human lives and stuff like that, property, then I think that's appropriate. As a result, my vlogging sometimes suffers because I'm thinking down the road or watching, various drivers that are, being weird or whatever, and also just trying to pick a good line through the chaos. So if I were just vlogging just me and the camera, then I would probably do it a little bit differently. So anyway, so I do think that one of the things is that a lot of times people are down on distraction when, you wouldn't, for example, a lot of people, my dad watched some sports while I was growing up. I didn't say a lot of sports, even though to me as a kid it seemed like a lot, just because as an adult I've known people who have watched a lot more than he did. And also he was kind of a passive observer of sports, so he was he'd have sports on all the time, but I don't really recall him except for a handful of really, really key games, like the Ohio State-Michigan game and some of the Final Four games. And even those, unless his team was playing, he really was always working on projects around the house and stuff like that. Now, I think that the projects probably would have been done faster if he had 100% focus and attention. And so I think when it comes to distractions, one needs to kind of maintain some kind of telemetry and also have some kind of expectations for themselves. Earlier I talked about how I do some of my task management, and one of the things that I do is when I review tasks, if I think they've been languishing on my list too long, I'll go back and I'll assign a deadline to them, like I want to get this done by the end of the week or whatever. And a lot of times it's not because there's a real deadline, it's just because I think it's taken up too much of my time. And that's really where I wanted to spend most of my time talking about distraction, is the way that mismanagement of time can become its own distraction. And so I think that things like hobbies, I've definitely been distracted in my past by, I've been, one of my hobbies is model railroading, and so if I encounter some really interesting concept and I'm just I can't get my mind off of it, I'm really thinking through all the possibilities and how I'd like to employ it on my own layout or on my own projects, then that can be a real distraction from everyday things like work. And so one of the things that I do to prevent that from distracting me in times I don't want to be distracted by it is by trying to allocate some time toward it. So if I find that I'm really getting obsessed with these like thoughts of like what I could do and how I could make progress on a project, then I go and prioritize that project and employ that energy towards completion of the project. And I even set aside some things that on paper might be more important, or in the big picture might be more important, just to kind of take advantage of where my energies are headed. And I think the biggest distraction though is oftentimes just all of the thinking about things that you'd rather be doing or that you need to be doing. And so I think having a system that enables you to prioritize those things and is very flexible, and you know, I think that's a key to reducing and eliminating distraction. So one of the things that that I think people do is one of the biggest distractions is just inefficiency. It prevents them from, it makes them spend more time on things that they could spend less time on, and that by extension means that they have, you know, less time to spend on other more important things. So I find that one of my biggest distractions when I look about it in retrospect is I just waste time doing things that are not getting me closer to advancing my goals. Now, I might waste that time in a variety of ways, but I'm pretty good at not wasting it like playing video games that I don't want to play. You know, I mean, that sounds like a weird thing, like why are you playing video games I don't want to play? But like sometimes I think a lot of times we need less of something to really be satisfied, or at least I do. And I think there's a tendency to binge. In fact, the term binge watching has, you know, come up, where people, they start watching a show, and now that it's in a world where you can stream every episode that was ever aired, people are tempted to just move from one show to the next until they finish the whole production. And I think that is, you know, that would be an example. Whereas if you could kind of limit yourself, I mean, you might not ever end up knowing the whole story, but if you can kind of limit yourself to like 1 hour a night, then you can also be more attuned to, you know, changes in tastes or things that you might otherwise be spending your time on, or if the series goes bad in some way and you don't like the direction or whatever. You know, I think that's, you know, that gives you those opportunities where if you binge watch it, then I think sometimes people get in a kind of goal-oriented mindset where they're going to watch something that ordinarily they wouldn't, just because maybe the quality dropped mid-season, or I don't know. So yeah, I don't know, I just think that it's really important to stay in tune with whether or not you're still getting value from something when you're doing it, and then whether or not you can free up that time for something else that is more important. And so yeah, I just think kind of thinking daily about like what good I want to do in the day, and that doesn't necessarily mean good for humanity, that just means things that that I would perceive as good. So like from my own perspective, so it could be that there's some kind of chore that's been bugging me. Like for example, I've got I did some KonMari cleaning, and I've got I cleaned out a lot of the clothes in my closet that I don't really enjoy wearing and don't really need anymore, and I don't really wear them a lot. So I cleaned them out and I put them in a big pile of, it's like a discard pile, but there are a couple of different ways I want to discard some of the items, and I just need to go through that pile and sort it out into the various ways I want to discard it. So like whether or not I want to give them to other people, or charity, or, you know, whatever. You know, a couple other things are, you know, I don't know, maybe collectible, so I was thinking of throwing them on eBay, stuff like that. But yeah, it's you know, that's an example of something that is kind of been persistently nagging at me, and it's been just a distraction. So, and it's like a more dangerous distraction, I think, than a lot of others, because it's like always there. I mean, it's like it's not going away until I do something about it, you know? So yeah, also my battery is kind of low on this camera, so I'm hoping it lasts through the commute. But if this terminates unexpectedly, that could be why. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, I just think that like one of the things I struggle with is whether or not, like, there are so many productive things that are on my list that I would really enjoy making progress on, but sometimes a lot of those things are really challenging, either mentally or physically, or they're limited based on where I can, you know, where I can be when I'm doing them. So for example, it doesn't really matter if I want to, you know, organize my discard list of clothing and separate that out and start dealing with that. It doesn't matter if I want to do that while I'm at work. I can't do it while I'm at work. I can't take a break and walk over and do that. So I kind of have to schedule it for times when I'm going to be there. Like a day I'm working from home, I might be able to take a break and go and work on it a little bit. Another thing I think distracts me from accomplishing all the things I could accomplish is sometimes, and I've talked a little bit about this before, is waiting until I can do the whole task. Something like organizing the pile, like if I just had the discipline and wasn't distracted from other, you know, by doing other things, to just go and grab like 1 or 2 things a night off of the pile, then like at the end of the month it would be gone. Whereas, you know, sometimes I'll work on some project and it'll be kind of in a spot where I intend to get back to it, so I didn't really pack everything up and put everything away. It's just kind of frozen in time for a month, or in some cases of like hobby projects and stuff that are 6 months or something. And so in those cases, what I need to do is just get some boxes, and you know, that'll hold everything related to it, and that stack nicely, and then just go and put the different projects in there, and then probably just kind of restack the boxes in the order that I want to get to them. But yeah, I don't want to look at distraction as a thing that you are doing specifically, like watching sports or playing video games. Those things can all be distractions, but there can be, you know, there can be times, you know, probably less so with video games because it's less passive, but like if you're watching movies or listening to music, or listening to podcasts or whatever, there's stuff you can be doing, or watching a sporting event. I mean, a lot of sporting events is empty space, like while the players are, you know, resetting from play to play in a football game, for example. Yeah, they hire professionals to go and fill that in with content, but you know, you could be doing stuff like folding laundry while you're watching it. I wouldn't advise that in the stadium, but yeah, you could do that just in a more general sense at home. So yeah, I mean, that's what and that's what I try to do at work as well, is you know, there are a lot of, you know, what can I do while I'm at work on a break? So I try and use the Pomodoro method if I feel like I'm getting behind on something. And I really, one of the things that I get distracted from doing is actually using the benefits of the Pomodoro method when I am on a roll, when I am fixated on something, when I am trying to solve something on a deadline. Sometimes I find that I kind of thrash against it, just because of all the pressures involved, and I don't take the time to get up and go to the restroom, go upstairs to the, you know, snack center and grab a snack, or, you know, just to like clear my mind and start fresh on it. And I often am required to do that very same thing for meetings. I mean, there can be like huge top priority tasks, and I end up getting called into a meeting. So, you know, if management really wanted me to work like incessantly on things, then they wouldn't call me into meetings. Actually, that's one of the reasons I'm headed to work a little earlier today, is we have a big, long, 4-hour long meeting in the morning. It's a kickoff meeting. It's to get everyone in the company on the same page about what we're doing this year. Yeah, I think like mid-February here is we're kicking off the kickoff meeting for the year. But yeah, it's good to have these kinds of things. There's going to be, they're going to make it pleasant. It's in a decent venue. It's going to have some nice food. And I hope to learn a little bit from it. But yeah, that's one of the things I need to do is, in order to get more done, I actually need to distract myself more by using the Pomodoro method to work. Like, what is it? I think it's something like it's like 25 minutes on the task and 5 minutes off, or something like that. I'll have to look it up. I obviously haven't been doing it as much as I want to. I think it's 25/5. And so those 5-minute blocks, I can get a lot done in terms of micro tasks and little online things. Like going online and paying a bill and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really how I'd think about distractions. Is is it something that are you being distracted from something that needs 100% of your focus? Can you reshuffle things so that what you're doing where makes more sense, where you are and what your time needs are? And are you using all the time available to you? Is there something that you're giving 100% focus to, like some TV show you like to watch, or a sporting event or something like that, that instead you could be folding clothes or making some kind of progress on something else if you gave a little bit less attention to it? And that way I think you can get distraction to kind of work for you, because the definition of distraction was just I think I can try and pull it up again. I don't see it up here. But it's when you're not giving 100% focus to something. But there are times when that's good enough, and I think there's a real trick to knowing whether or not it's good enough, and what situations it's good enough. There are some things where you need to have 100% focus. Actually, I think driving, as long as you're attentive and focused on what's going on around you primarily, and you're not, one of the big problems with distracted driving as a general term is that people are doing things that limits their situational awareness, and so it takes them time to switch from doing that thing to actually driving. So I think that if your head's in the game and your focus is on driving, then if you're doing something like having a conversation with someone or vlogging, which you can easily just stop and focus on an issue on the road, then you can do so safely and effectively. Things like operating a table saw, I don't know that I would, I've seen some vloggers who do that, and part of it is the noise of the table saw and everything, but yeah, they seem to stop chit-chatting while they operate it, and so far I haven't seen anyone take off their fingers, though a lot of them are celebrity woodworkers that have saw-stop saws. So I would love to have a saw-stop table saw someday, but right now I just have no table saw. Anyway, so yeah, I think that kind of covers the distraction and probably casts it in some new light. I mean, yeah, I try not to be distracted, but I think I'm more distracted by the hidden distractions than things like sports and video games, which I already try and do other things while I'm taking part in those things. So I think sometimes people use the term distraction to describe a lack of focus and planning, and I think that it's worth revisiting if you apply some planning and then commit yourself to some focus. Then you'd be amazed at how much time it frees up for distraction. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna say please like and subscribe if you thought this was interesting. Please, help grow the community of people watching this vlog. I guess it's really interesting. I was talking to a couple of people yesterday, and they were saying that there was something they didn't like about an earlier vlog, so they went and re-listened to it and took notes so that they could tell me what they didn't like. And there were actually 2 separate people who did that. I thought that was kind of amusing, because I think that shows a certain that's very kind of those of you who do that. I really am trying to improve, and I actually did get some, they were kind of silly ideas, but I'm actually going to try them. I'm going to try whiteboarding on my windshield so that I can stay on topic more. But anyway, yeah, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.